Hello folks, welcome back to UK Rails and More. Hope you're all keeping safe and well, and certainly if you're watching in the UK, enjoying this particularly nice sunny period of weather that we've got at the moment. Okay, so what are we looking at? We're basically in an area of Greenbelt, which runs through a suburban area about 2 miles west of Stockport. What we're looking at, we're stood on a disused railway embankment, and we're looking down in the foreground. We've got the farmer's field with the horses, and then just beyond that, running from the left to the right, we've got the River Mersey and its banks. What you'll see in the close-up shot, or on this screen right in the middle of your screen, is the remains of a disused rail line that basically spanned the River Mersey. Now it's one of two lines here. So the line that we're stood on, the disused line that we're taking the footage from, is at a higher level than that line that we're looking at. So basically we're looking at two lines that basically are crossing the River Mersey at the same point, which I thought would be a very interesting feature to incorporate into the new layout. Okay folks, so here's a close-up shot of the remains of that railway bridge that crossed the River Mersey. You can see from the image probably that it crossed the river at an angle. It didn't cross it directly 90 degrees to it, which is another interesting feature that you don't often see. What you'll also see is it's a brick-built structure at that point, with I think at least a couple of arches just out of shot. However, the main bridge structure that went across there was actually made of iron. Okay, so this footage basically, we're looking down the embankment that we stood on. That's the higher level embankment, and we're now panning across to the left. So there's the farmer's field, and then we've got the River Mersey in the distance just behind that line of trees. There you can just about see the brick-built structure of the other railed bridge that crosses the river at a lower level than this embankment that we're on, if that makes sense, hopefully. So you've got the two bridges, the rail bridges that cross, and then you've got one rail bridge that crosses the other one at an even higher level, and both cross the river at the same time. So what we're looking at there is the remains of the rail bridge from the higher level crossing, which is where I'm stood taking the footage from. And we've got the usual graffiti there as well that we find on these disused rail lines in places. So we're just looking back along the higher level embankment, and then we're panning round to the left, and then we can see there's the remains of the start of the bridge that crossed the river at the higher level, with the other line going from left to right across the bottom of that one, but you'll see clearer in the next shot. There's another image from the lower level now, so we're looking up at the higher level embankment at the point where it crossed. There you can see the base with the usual graffiti. Okay folks, we're on the lower level disused line looking towards Stockport there. As we pan round, there's the higher level embankment, so the line would have crossed over our head. There's a sign about trespassers not being prosecuted, which is old because that's now a nature walk across the top. Now we are looking back towards Stockport on the lower track bed. There's the river beyond those trees, and there's looking down towards the west. And then back round, there's the embankment beyond those trees. When I'm planning a layout, I always think it's worth me taking plenty of photographs of structures like this, just to give you something to refer back to and help you when you're actually building the structures. You don't have to make them exactly the same unless you want to be absolutely prototypical, but it certainly gives you good ideas, like for example these blue engineering bricks that you'd get. Here's another view looking down from where we are, down towards the river in the west, and a couple of signs to just show you exactly where we are. Okay folks, here's a couple of shots taken from, we're stood on the riverbank, that's looking across the farmer's field, and in the distance on the right you can see the embankment, which disused is now absolutely covered in trees, so you can actually see the embankment itself. Just a funny little anecdote, you'll see the horses in the field there. As I was stood waiting to take some video footage here, there was a bloke and his son, maybe 6 or 7, and the bloke was explaining what horses ate, saying predominantly grass, followed by a number of other things such as carrots. One of the things he mentioned that they love is polo mints. There was then a pause, and to which the son asked, "Daddy, do horses eat pork scratchings?" To which the dad couldn't really answer. But anyway, yeah, moving on. Just as a quick add-on, guys, please don't go giving horses polo mints. Apparently some of them are on special diets. It may not go down too well. Okay, there's a shot panning round from the river towards the west. There's the embankment, just to put it into context. Coming round to where the bridge is. There's a nice shot of the river again. Just through the nice trees there. It's quite wide at this point, so it's quite shallow, and there's ripply as well. Okay folks, we're looking over towards the west, and you can see in the centre of the screen, or just left of centre, the remains of the lower level viaduct that crossed the river at this location. And there's a close-in shot of the same thing, quite an impressive brick-built structure there. You can only imagine the trains thundering across here back in the day. Here's another image now of the river, so that's looking towards Stockport. You can see it's quite wide and shallow. I'll speak about that a little bit later. But basically, you're looking across now, just panning round from Stockport end. And you can see where the bridges, the two would have spanned the river at this location. There's the remains of the old bridge, and that's looking off over towards the west and Cheadle. And there's the Bankham at a lower level down on the bank there. There's another shot of the structure. You can see there's a couple of arches there. There's one of the arches, really quite interesting. But the main structure that went across was, I believe, was iron. But again, get lots of detail of that. And there's just another one just panning round, just to give an idea of the foliage and other things, and the characteristics of the river as well, for modelling that later. Okay, a few more images here. Just get some more detail. If you want to pause at this point, here's an information point with lots of details of how things were. Again, an old Ordnance Survey map showing the details of the structure. And here's an interesting one of the line, which back in the day, where it branches over to the right, would have led over to some extensive engine sheds. Okay, there's more imagery showing the actual viaducts in use back in the day. Again, some more imagery. Stop on these and just have a good look. Hopefully you can read all the details as well about it. Okay, and a few more images of the structure that we've taken earlier. Now here's a view. We're stood further on the banks of the river at the west, and we're looking back along the embankment there. So there's the river bank. So you can see the higher level embankment in the distance. It was a nice capture. Captured a heron just taking off, which I think are disturbed. So there's a close in of that one when I was taking my footage of the river. Here's the river. You can see it's a different characteristic here. It's much deeper because the river's narrow and it's got to move the same volume of water. There's the farm building, some stables and caravans there. And this is a view of the banking looking over towards the west. There's a weir, because there was an old mill back in the day here, so there's the weir for that. And again, pause on this. This is the information, quite interesting historical information. There's a view looking downstream of the weir, and again, you've got the deep water at the top, or the disturbed water. That's another view of the weir. Interesting feature. Okay, I took a few shots here just to show the effect on the water, basically, of changes in the river as it moves downstream. So you can see it gets a lot shallower here at this point, but you can see hopefully how the water is actually channeled into the centre, and you get much more of a ripple, turbulent effect in the water there as well. There's a bit more footage of that. It just helps to modelling when you're looking at water, how you've got the deeper bit in the centre there, and it's being channelled through by the rocks, and you can see it's quite shallow towards the sides. You know, contrast that to how deep it was at the other stage just before the weir. And there's a close-in of the weir itself. When it's at high flood, it's really dangerous, this. Now here's a view of a pipe that's going across in a structure, which is just an interesting modelling feature where you've got industry along this. Used to be a pipe carrying water from the bleach works, I believe. Okay, and a bit more footage looking down on the river here. You can see it's very deep, it's narrower, and so you've got a really still surface to the water. and then just zooming in again on that pipe. It's just an interesting feature that you can build into your models. Now I was looking along the pipe, so there's no floor to that, it's just literally a structure. It's not a footbridge at all. And again, looking down on the river again, you can see how deep it is at this point. You can't see the banking. Quite straightforward to construct, I would imagine, and you can make it all rusted up because it's not used. Now this was just taking some footage of the banking, so you can see the banking effect. Now there's an old retaining wooden structure to basically keep the banks in place that's been neglected somewhat. There's a view looking back on the bridge from the west. We're looking towards the east, and you can see those containers around the outside, the sheet steel. That's to prevent people getting on, kids to get onto it. And there you can see there's the old structure, okay, that's been neglected, and there's just a moment there you can see that's a corrugated steel structure where that's more significant. Obviously it's going to last a lot longer. And just looking back, you can see where some of the banking's a bit more man-made there. Okay, more views of the banking. I always find it's easier to... Okay, here's a water outlet, or outlet onto the river, which again is another little feature that you can build. And there you can see the effect of the water coming out of that into the river, and the rippled effect. And it's quite a nice brick-built or stone-built structure. And you can see the retaining wall there because you've got extra erosion caused by that, so that's to protect the bank as it sends it into the main channel, the water. Okay, that's another view which is to illustrate that you've got flood defences on the opposite banking. So you've got the main bank at ground level, and then you've got the raised sections. And again, that's looking round over towards Cheadle. You can see the curvature of the river, it curves around over towards the left. You've got recreational fields on the right, but really I took this just to emphasise the flood defences, which is that raised bit on the bank, because this was subject to a lot of flooding. This is where you can see some erosion on the banking, so you can see where it's gradually, when it's been a very high flood, it's managed to erode the banking on the left hand side there. And that's looking back. Now you can see on the inner end of the curve, you will get deposits, and it will be shallower as the river moves round to the on the outer side of it. It'll be a much deeper channel. Okay, that's looking at Cheadle Bridge. Road bridge goes across there, which again would be a very nice feature to model. And you can see the effect of the water before the bridge. So we're flowing from left to right, is very deep, undisturbed, and then just beyond the bridge you can see all of the turbulent flow in the water just as it hits that bridge. Okay, here's some more flood defences in the fields around. So that's the road going across from Cheadle to East Didsbury. Okay, so they built up the flood defences, and again, very nice bridge. And that's looking back towards the east where we've come from. Now it's quite a nice river to inspire some model. That's looking down from the road bridge. You can see it's very shallow there. You can see the base of the riverbed. And this is looking back at the road bridge from the west. So you get a good view. By all means, pause this and have a greater look at the bridge. Okay, there's just a bit of footage showing the disturbed effect of the water, really. And there's more of a distance shot looking back at that road bridge. And I'm panning round, looking over towards the west again. That's where you get deposits on the inside of a curve on the river, and there's more of a deeper, faster flowing section on the outside end of the curve. That tends to happen as rivers meander around, so it's a good point to consider for your models. I'll hopefully be including that in the one that I'm going to be doing. And again, another close in on that bridge. Okay, a couple of shots of industrial units for around about where I've looking at creating that river, just as an idea if I was to put an industrial unit on. Again, that shows a bit of a timber yard on one side and the path in between industrial areas, how it's got lots of greenery around it to kind of hide the units a little bit from the main path, as this is a redeveloped walkway kind of area for recreation. And again, typical industrial units. And there you go, there's some network rail vans. So interesting thing to produce. Okay, and there's the other end of the embankment, the disused railway embankment. At this point it would have been 4 lines, so you can see it's quite extensive. So you can see the structure in that blue engineering brick. There's the width of it, the 4 lines, so it would have been really impressive. And you can see as well, I think this shot was just to show that the embankment, again, it's not straight onto the road at 90 degrees, it goes across the road at an angle. So that shows that structure there, how it's going across at an angle there. But again, nice bit of material for modelling embankments, which I'm quite fond of. Okay guys, I hope you've found that useful. Some material to give you an idea of the ways you can build and plan your own layouts. I'm certainly going to be using some of these features or adaptations of them in the new layout that's coming soon in June. In the meantime, look after yourselves. There will be more garden running sessions coming soon. I've also got another review coming soon, so stay tuned. If you would like to subscribe, if you hit the notification bell at the top, that will let you know whenever I release a new video, so you'll be kept fully up to date on that one. Here's some nice pictures of some cows on the way back, just to leave you with. But once again, thanks very much for watching, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.